Good afternoon. Let me start again by saying that we continue to pray for all of the victims of the Key Bridge collapse and also their families. We are thinking of you and your loved ones when you wake up in the morning. We're thinking of you when we go to bed at night. And your heart and all of you are in our hearts and continue to be in our prayers. Estamos pensando en todos ustedes y en sus seres queridos desde el momento en que nos levantamos por la mañana y cuando nos acostamos por la noche. I also want to recognize all of our first responders and emergency personnel. You continue to be the best of us, and we thank you. Now, this morning, I received a briefing from Unified Command, and today, I'll provide some updates on the 4 directives that I've issued to the team. As a reminder, first, we need to give closure to these families. Second, we need to clear the channel and open vessel traffic to the port. Third, we need to take care of all the people who have been affected by this crisis. And fourth, we need to, and we will, rebuild the Francis Scott Key Bridge. So first, on our recovery efforts and providing closure to the families. I've appointed Adriana Lee to serve as our administration's liaison to the families of the victims in their time of need. Adriana currently serves as a director of the Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and yesterday she joined with leaders from city and state and federal levels to meet with the families of the victims. Around 100 people were in attendance during these 2 meetings, including representatives from Baltimore City, Baltimore County, the Maryland State Police, the FBI, and the American Red Cross. These 2 meetings lasted a combined 6 hours. Yesterday's meeting established a direct line of communication for the families to obtain continuous updates about the progress of our recovery efforts. And the state has assigned a case manager from the Department of Human Services to support these families. On the day of the collapse, I said that we would stop at nothing to support these families. And we will continue to stop at nothing to give these families the closure that they need and the closure that they deserve. Mission first, people always. Second, on clearing the federal channel and opening vessel traffic to the port. Yesterday, we showed you a 3D sonar rendering of the bottom of the river. Now, these renderings were being used by salvage divers to navigate the wreckage. And as you saw yesterday, and you remember, that water is so murky that salvage divers cannot see any more than 1 to 2 feet in front of them. As you remember from yesterday, the collapse of the bridge is so distinct and so severe, with the metal that is so disconfigured and so brought together and pancaked, that it continues to make this mission extraordinarily complicated and dangerous for those who are conducting it. And so every single diver that goes into the water has been paired with an operator who uses a mix of 3D renderings and drawings and pictures to be able to guide their partner. That all of the rescue operations are essentially being done within buddy teams. And we have brand new video from Unified Command that shows you just what this process looks like. And you'll be able to hear both the salvage diver and also the operator in this video.
It's a couple inches beyond my fingertips.
Alright, so you can't get to the bottom. So how much do you have exposed from the one line to the top of the vessel plate?
Stand by, I'll grab the tape.
That's the view of our divers. So as you can see, and I think as Colonel Pinchason said really well yesterday, that view looks like being in the middle of a snowstorm with high beams on. That's the complication that our divers are navigating right now. And that's why we have to move with not just extreme caution, but also extreme safety. Because as we've said before, safety and making sure that we have no more casualties and no more injuries is the highest priority of this unified command. We also need to make sure that the port stays open even if the channel is closed. Vessel traffic accounts for the vast majority of economic activity that takes place to and through the port. But to keep things moving, we've got to get creative, and we have. So over the last few days, a large vessel bound for the port of Baltimore was rerouted to the port of New York and New Jersey due to the collapse. But we wanted to make sure that those containers made their way to Baltimore. And so I've been informed that as of this morning, 75 containers from that rerouted vessel arrived at the Seagrit Marine Terminal at the Port of Baltimore, operated by Ports America Chesapeake. These containers will be transferred from rail to the port by members of the International Longshoremen's Association, or ILA. And I want to thank all of our friends at the port, including our partners at CSX, for their leadership in getting that shipment down to Baltimore. Because without their hard work, those 75 containers would likely have never made it to Baltimore. This work presents a model about how we can move in partnership to get commercial activity through the port even when the channel is closed. And I want to thank our friends over the Port of New York and New Jersey for working with us to make it happen. Now, I do want to be clear. This is just a permanent, so this is not a permanent solution. The 75 containers that we moved today represents less than 5% of the average number of containers that the port processes daily before the collapse. Less than 5%. So we still have a long road ahead of us to getting vessel traffic back up to full capacity. But we will get it back up to full capacity. It's critical for our workers. It's critical for our economy. It's critical for our state. And it's critical for our country. Mission first, people always. Third, on taking care of our people. Over the last 2 days, our new Maryland Business Resource Center have helped a combined 77 businesses. And tomorrow, we will open a new permanent business center in Baltimore County. The permanent site will be located at the Garden Annex Building at the Community College of Baltimore County and their Dunbelt campus. The address is 7200 Solars Point Road, Baltimore, Maryland, 21222. It will open to the public tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., and I encourage everyone to visit sba.gov for more information on hours and resources. We've stood up these centers at incredible speeds, and we could not have moved so fast without the partnership of our federal delegation, without the partnership of our local leaders, and the partnership of the Biden-Harris administration. And today, we are thankful to be joined by Isabel Guzman, who is the administrator of the Small Business Administration. And Administrator Guzman has been an absolutely extraordinary partner inside this work from the very beginning. And I want to say thank you for all of your leadership and support. Say thank you also to the entire Biden-Harris team. Thank you all for believing in Baltimore. And thank you all for standing with Maryland always. Now I want to provide a brief update on the state budget. We entered budget season being very clear that we needed to be fiscally responsible as a state. We needed to study the data. We needed to direct state resources towards proven programs that offer big returns. And we needed to prioritize spending in a way that invests in our state and grows our economy in the long term and doesn't choose one over the other. So yesterday, state legislators unveiled a bipartisan budget agreement that reflects each of these goals. This bipartisan budget agreement makes significant investments in public education, in childcare, in housing, historic investments in each of those areas. And this budget advances our commitment to making Maryland safer, making Maryland more affordable, making Maryland more competitive, and continuing to make Maryland the state that serves. And this budget achieves each of these goals without raising the personal income tax, without raising the corporate income tax, and without raising sales tax for the second year in a row. I'm proud of this agreement. I'm proud of this partnership. And I look forward to getting the final budget to my desk for signature. This is going to provide the kind of certainty in this moment that the people of our state need, that the people of our state deserve, and know that this state is going to be bold and also be fiscally responsible and not choose one or the other. And I want to thank Speaker Jones, President Ferguson, Chairman Barnes, Chairman Gazzoni, and Minority Leader Hershey for all of their work and cooperation in making this happen. I also want to thank Delegate Luke Clippinger, because today he presented the House version of the Port Act at a committee hearing. He has stepped up alongside other lawmakers from the districts that border the Port of Baltimore. And this is exactly what partnership looks like. This is exactly what Team Maryland looks like. Partnership produces progress. And when we move in partnership, we win. And I'm grateful to have such partners in this work. Mission first, people always. Now fourth, on rebuilding. We cannot rebuild the bridge until we clear the wreckage. But we will clear the channel, we will move the dolly, and we will rebuild the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Every day, I meet more people who prove what it means to be Maryland tough and Baltimore strong. And today, we're joined by Trooper First Class Waldis Batista and Corporal Todd Sexton. They both serve in the Maryland Department of State Police. And throughout their careers, they worked together to bring closure and comfort to Marylanders affected by tragedy. The day of the collapse, Trooper First Class Batista was dispatched to assist the MDTA police. He was assigned to a family reunification center to assist with translation needs for the families involved. Corporal Sexton responded to coordinate with Maryland State Police technicians from the Forensic Science Division to document the scene with photographs of the collapsed site. And over the last 10 days, they have worked together to support the families of the victims of the Key Bridge collapse. I am so proud that today is the graduation day for the Maryland State Police. We welcomed 33 new troopers into the ranks. And I'm proud to stand with these two role models that entire class can look up to. Trooper First Class Batista, Corporal Sexton. Thank you both for what you do. Thank you for always making and putting mission first and people always. So proud to stand with you. Thank you. So in a moment, I will turn it over to Admiral Gilreath speaking for Unified Command. And then we will be joined by the following speakers: Small Business Administrator Guzman, Senator Ben Cardin, Congressman Kweisi Mfume, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski, and I'm thankful for everyone, including our Lieutenant Governor, who are standing up here today, and for this remarkable team who has not stopped working on behalf of the people of this state. I will now turn it over to Admiral Gilreath, representing Unified Command.
Good afternoon. I'm Rear Admiral Shannon Gilreath. I'm speaking on behalf of the Unified Command. Before I get into today's update, I first want to say thank you again to the community for the love and support you've provided to all of the first responders who have come to assist in this incident. This morning, I went and visited Coast Guard Station, Curtis Bay, Maryland. It's located inside our Coast Guard yard, just right around the corner from the Key Bridge. As I went into the station to thank them for their work that they've been doing on this incident and for getting out on scene immediately after the bridge collapsed, I walked into their break room and I looked around, and it was like the Easter Bunny had come to that unit. There were probably 300 wrapped little care packages with energy drinks, chips, all kinds of little snacks, and that really lifted their spirits. And we'll be distributing those to other first responders who are contributing to this as well. But I just want to say thank you to the community for that kind of support. I have not seen that in other places for some of these incidents like this. And I really, truly appreciate, and all of our first responders, I'm speaking on behalf of all of them, the people who are standing up here on the local and state and federal side, thank you for the support that you have given us and the people who are working on this incident. So we cannot thank you enough for that support. It means the world to us as we continue to do the very best we can to reopen this facility, reopen the waterway as fast as we possibly can to do it safely. So for my updates, our number one priority remains reopening that shipping channel. So today we are continuing to dive and assess in that deep draft part of the shipping channel. On board the ship, as we work on our second priority to remove the ship, we are rigging containers to get ready to remove them from the bow of the ship and bring them over to Tray Point when we can do that. And then just north of the deep draft channel, on our third priority, we are working to remove that large section that I talked about previously that we're waiting on for weather to lift. We're currently rigging that up right now, but we had not yet lifted it as I departed to come over here for the press conference. We're going to continue to work that. So, Governor, that's my updates for today, sir, and back to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Governor, really truly for the partnership. The way that SBA was able to deploy quickly really was dependent on you and your team quickly collaborating with us, working with us to identify and move forward with the disaster declaration. So appreciate the leadership that you've given on behalf of Maryland and truly the entire region as this impact goes beyond just Baltimore and just Maryland. I also just want to thank the congressional delegation here as well. Senator Cardin and Congressman Mfume both serve on the small business committees in their respective houses and are very familiar with SBA's programs and talked to me both early on just to make sure that SBA could be fully deployed to really help the community, help the small businesses in this recovery. And I want to thank, of course, the Unified Command, really delivering on President's commitment to move heaven and earth to really try to focus on helping us not only reopen the port, but rebuild the bridge and move forward into the future with this recovery. We are continuing to focus in the early stages and grieving for the families who have lost loved ones. And I just want to share as well my sentiments for those family members who have lost loved ones with prayers and condolences. President Biden directed the team early on to dive into the federal resources available within every agency and make sure that we could deploy quickly and swiftly to help the community not only survive but thrive into the future. And SBA from day one was clear that we were going to be needed on the ground with our special disaster support that we provide to small businesses. We're pleased to work early on with Governor Moore being able to turn around a disaster declaration after request within 24 hours, and shortly thereafter open our first business recovery centers on Monday, opening 2 to start and with an intent to continue to expand to make sure that we're boots on the ground with a high-touch customer service that really helps the community access our incredible programs at the SBA. We were Of course, we're focused on coming in swiftly because we know that small businesses that are the heart of communities and have really put their heart and souls into their businesses and building them and investing in them have been impacted by the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. We wanted to make sure that financial relief, financial support was available to them so that they could have time to strategically pivot, adapt, and survive during this time as the state and the federal government responds to this disaster. You know, the SBA deploys economic injury and physical disaster loans during disasters. In this case, economic injury disaster loans are being deployed with funds available up to $2 million to support businesses and nonprofits with low interest, long-term loans that are affordable, but also recognizing that this is a long-term recovery and that there is uncertainty for small businesses in terms of the timing of their ability to recover. So we have, under the Biden-Harris administration, moved to deploy 12 months of deferment on payments and interest, meaning interest does not accrue. Those payments are not due for 12 months so that businesses can use this cash, this capital, to really maintain payroll, maintain their overhead, be able to continue to survive in the community and support the community as they do so well in this country, and keep their entrepreneurial dreams alive in the same time. So we're pleased to be deploying this economic injury disaster loan, not only for the state of Maryland, but with the governor's declaration, we were able to deploy in all contiguous counties in neighboring states of Pennsylvania, Delaware, West Virginia, Virginia, as well as DC. And to date, over 500 applications have been finalized with the SBA. We're continuing to see, as the governor mentioned, within our business recovery centers, businesses seeking assistance, seeking help. Not only the great loans, but as well the advice on how they can position their business for success. With this capital deployed, we believe that we'll be able to help in the long term, help these businesses reposition, help economic development. And we know how critical they are in communities. There's over 640,000 businesses, small businesses here in the state, in Baltimore region specifically, 50,000 employer firms employing over 500,000 people. That's a huge economic impact, and we want to make sure those businesses who have been disrupted either because they worked directly with the port or because they were on either sides of that bridge, depending on commerce going across that mile and a half. You know, those businesses are the ones we have in mind because there's a ripple effect that we want to make sure we address for the people of Maryland and the entire region. You know, I will continue to direct the SBA to really fully deploy all of our resources. You know, not just focusing on getting these disaster loans into the hands of the businesses that need it the most, but also to help them with revenue growth opportunities, leveraging our contracting dollars, our international trade advisors to help businesses bring economic development, bring more jobs into the state and beyond. So truly this is going to be a whole of government approach as President Biden has already requested, but beyond that really dependent on state and local partnerships. So I'm so glad that I was able to be joined earlier by both Mayor Scott as well as County Executive Johnny O to meet with small businesses here in the state and understand some of the challenges and opportunities that they see on the horizon so that we at the SBA can really meet them where they are, serve them in ongoing partnership with the state, county, local, and partners on the ground that are deployed by the SBA to truly lift up economic development. Thank you so much.
Governor Moore, your federal delegation stands squarely with you. Senator Van Hollen, Congressman Mfume, the entire federal delegation supports the 4 priorities that you've outlined. We stand with the families of the victims. We will stand with them and bring closure. We strongly will work with you to open up the channel as quickly and safely as possible. We will always help those who have been impacted, the workers, the business owners, the communities, and provide the relief that is needed, and the Key Bridge will be replaced with a bridge befitting our community. We stand with you on all of those points. Administrator Guzman, thank you for coming to Baltimore, and thank you for your leadership on behalf of small businesses. Governor, we heard from those that are really impacted by this bridge being coming down. We know about all the containers that go through the Port of Baltimore, 1 million a year. We don't realize how many small businesses are impacted if those containers don't come in. We heard heart-wrenching stories from William and Dawn as to how they put everything in their life into their businesses, to start it, to be an entrepreneur, to grow our economy. And now they don't know whether they're going to survive because they depend upon those containers being there in order to transport them. That's their business. They don't have deep pockets. One works as an independent contractor. One has 1 or 2 employees. They need our help. So Administrator Guzman, thank you for being there today. What we heard today is the urgency of helping our small business owners and the coordination of the resources that may be available. And to Mayor Scott and County Executive Oshesky, you are providing some of that gap. And we want to make sure that that is coordinated with the federal tools and the state tools so we can get maximum help to maintain these small businesses during these extremely difficult circumstances. And Governor, I want you to know, Congress resumes session on Monday, both the House and the Senate. We will be convening with the Biden administration, with the Office of Management and Budget, with the Federal Department of Transportation, with the State Department of Transportation, with your team, to make sure that the resources that are being made available, and I want to make this clear, there's been no delay in federal resources or personnel to deal with the missions that you outlined. We're going to make sure that that continues, to make sure Congress does everything it needs to do in order to carry out the commitment the President has given us and the one that we think needs to be carried out. So we're going to work immediately to do what is never necessary in Congress to make that a reality. Now, we know there are some people who say, well, isn't there third-party liabilities and their insurance? And the answer is we're going to hold all responsible people fully accountable. But we're not going to delay opening our channel or rebuilding our bridge with the lengthy process that that may take. So we're going to make sure that we hold everyone responsible for the benefit of the taxpayers. But we're going to move with prompt dispatch to open that channel and replace the bridge. So you have our full support, and one of those key players is my colleague in the House of Representatives, Congressman Fumek.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Allow me just to again thank the Unified Command that has been operating at the direction of our governor and that has kept this process moving in a very clear and transparent and open way. Governor, I said a little while ago, standing in the hall with someone, what if we didn't have the same people in place as you see on both sides of this podium, but that we had another group that perhaps may not have been as committed or as attached or have the same skills. God would have to help us. That's how bad it would be. But we do have a great team. And I can tell you after many, many years of dealing with many, many issues that have been catastrophic, I've never seen in place a team like this before. So I want to thank you, Governor, and the Lieutenant Governor for your leadership. Corporal Sexton, can you step out for a minute? And Trooper Batista. Again, I just want to reiterate deliberately and redundantly what the mayor or the governor has said, and that is that we thank you so much for your interaction with these families. We will never, ever, ever forget that that's why we are all here. Thank you both very, very much. Ben Cardin says something that should be repeated. That is that there has been an extremely fast response from the federal government. Extremely fast. We're in day 9. And already the president made this a priority on day 1. Also on that day, we were visited by Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, who also met with the governor and delivered to the governor before week's end $60 million in initial cleanup funds. Last Friday, I stood on the docks with several hundred longshoremen, along with the Secretary of Labor She has made a commitment, and Labor is sending money into our Department of Labor. And today we are very, very fortunate, as you heard, to hear from Administrator Guzman, head of the Small Business Administration, who has come here to help and has been helping. She and I spoke last Thursday. I was amazed by Friday evening. Governor, you were reporting that they had already sent in $3.5 million to help with EIDL loans and are doing so much more. Thank you so very much for being here. Now, one quick thing about the community, lest we ever forget, and then one final thing about Congress. I can't say enough. You've heard about the outpouring of help and people just giving of themselves, providing meals, as the Admiral talked about, and doing so many other humanitarian things. I want to thank the people of Dundalk and the people of Turner Station who have gone out of their way during this time to help accommodate the needs of so many as we traverse their neighborhoods going back and forth. Who, for them, that bridge was a cathedral. It was a part of the skyline. It was a way to get to work, to get to school, and to visit loved ones. They understand the depth of this, and the sincerity of them has been overwhelming. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all of them. Now, Senator Cardin is right. We go back in on Monday, which is why there's not been any congressional action. Somebody said, well, how come the Congress hasn't done anything? Well, Congress has done quite a bit. And getting ready for next week, I mentioned to you a few days ago that I'd spoken directly with the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Speaker Johnson, who understood before I could even talk about the seriousness of this, the impact that it was going to have on the area, but most of all on the country, because of the disruption of supply chains and the disruption of all the things that go with taking goods and services and moving them around the country. We do not want to affect the economy, and he understood that, as did Tom Cole and Rosa DeLauro, the two ranking senior members on the Appropriation Committee, one Democrat and one Republican. And I've talked to a number of my colleagues on the House side, from Leader Hakeem Jeffries on down. We are ready to receive whatever the President brings and sends to the Congress. And as you know, he will be here tomorrow and talk specifically about what that will be. So when that comes, it will take place. I don't want to get too far off point, but Ben and I and Chris are working our butts off to make sure that this goes through the Congress the way that it should, and that the relief that the Congress of the United States will provide will be efficient and sufficient for this disaster. Thank you very much. Let me bring forward now someone who has just been a shining star throughout this disaster, and that is the Mayor of the City of Baltimore, Mayor Brandon Scott.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Congressman. First, let me thank the Governor and the fabulous team from Unified Command at the Governor's direction for their continued work in handling this tragedy with the utmost care. And as I always say, we will continue to uplift all the families that have been impacted, particularly those who are still missing among the wreckage. We will not leave you. We will be by your side each and every day. As you've heard from the Governor, my Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs has been central to that work, working alongside the Governor's team and the County Executive team to support those families, engaging with them each and every day. And the fund that they put together now has already more than $430,000 in it. That funding will go directly to these families for whatever they need, no matter, Mr. Governor, which jurisdiction they reside in, because together is how we're working through this tragedy. We will continue to be with them throughout the duration. From now on, they know that they have a place of support from every single team that is involved in this response. From mine, County Executive Olszewski, County Executive Pittman, the Governor, President Biden, our congressional delegation, everybody is in it together. And we know that one life is one too many. But we know that it would have been more families and more people if we did not have those first responders who we saw earlier this week with the quick response that they had. Last night, Mr. Governor, I had the opportunity to spend some time with some of the Baltimore City Fire Department dispatch team from C-Ship who were working that night, including Captain Sherry Wagner, Lieutenant Amelia Hemsley, Dispatcher Smith, Dispatcher Sordell, Dispatcher Dunphy, but I want to give a particular shout out to Dispatcher Shamanique Davis, a lifelong Baltimorean who took the initial call and worked the operational talk group and the radio, and Dispatcher Sharnetta Moore, who worked supporting radio talk groups, talking to them about immediately jumping into action, making sure that they were helping to coordinate all the different pieces of apparatus and teams that were coming out to the scene. And they did it without even thinking and blinking. Thank each and every one of you for the work that you did last week, but that you do each and every day. Just like their counterparts at MDTA Police, they just jumped into action to be the heroes that they are. And to the county executive's point from yesterday, to show you how small Baltimore is. Last night while I was there, one of the dispatchers said, "Mr. Mayor, I want to show you a picture." It was a picture of me and her dad, who is a longshoreman from 2 days ago when we were at the port. This impacts every single person in our community. I also want to thank you, Madam Administrator, and your team for not only coming today, but for also supporting all of our small businesses through this tragedy. Those stories that we heard today were heart-wrenching, but we know that we all will be here to support them, and that the full weight of the federal government will be on display here tomorrow and always through the leadership of President Biden. Thank you very much for everybody, and I'll turn it back over to Governor Moore. I'm sorry. I'll turn it over to my senator, County Executive Johnny Olszewski.
I'm happy to take a pass from my point guard anytime in Mayor Scott. Again, just lifting up those families impacted in our prayers, along with our first responders, and frankly, the incredible leadership of our Unified Command and our governor. It's important to pray for our leaders, so please remember to do that as well. Administrator Guzman, thank you for taking the time to be present today, not just in touring the incredible setup that you and your team has. We know both in Baltimore City and in Baltimore County, but also in convening those impacted small businesses. Every time we have a conversation, the picture gets a little more clear about just how deep and wide the impact of this catastrophe truly is. We are in Baltimore County proud to be partnering with you, with the governor's team, and with our counterparts in Baltimore City to open up a more permanent site at the Community College of Baltimore County. Tomorrow, that new site will be open and running alongside the temporary site at the DRC before transitioning permanently on Saturday. We look forward to continuing to do whatever it takes to support our governor, our president, and his team. We also look forward to welcoming the president tomorrow. I'll just end by saying it's no surprise that President Biden is coming to join us in person. I know that we all got calls early and often. Senator Cardin, Congressman Mfume, the mayor, myself, the governor, the lieutenant governor. And so between that, and along with the personal touch of his senior advisor, Tom Perez, his SBA administrator today, his Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Transportation, you start to get a sense that that commitment is real. So we look forward to welcoming the president tomorrow, and we continue to welcome the incredible support he has shown to us in this moment of need. With that, I'll turn things back over to our leader, Governor Moore.
All right, we're going to take questions. We're going to start with the Baltimore Sun. Questions? Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Okay, Lily from the Sun. There's a couple of pieces of equipment coming or that are already here. 26 for the octopus and the garlic shears and a solid bucket. Can you explain what those do, where they're coming from?
The Code Octopus is a 3D volumetric sonar that gives us those videos that we saw yesterday. It really allows us to see through the murky conditions that are under the water and helps provide some situational awareness to the diving supervisor who is directing the diver on the bottom. The salvage bucket is on its way up. It's basically a giant grab that goes down to grab some of the wreckage to lift it up. The wreckage that can't be rigged individually to be put onto a barge. Thank you.
Next question, WMAR.
This would be for the Army Corps of Engineers. You guys tweeted out something earlier today, kind of likening this process to a game of Jenga and the pressure changing when you move each piece. Can you kind of just explain that?
Sure. It's hard, I guess, trying to make folks be able to visualize this. When you look at the skyline and you see these large spans in the water, it looks like they just fell. And so you think of how Jenga falls or pickup sticks fall, and you think you'll be able to take them apart. But the wreckage is so mangled, cantilevered, and bent that within those piles, within that wreckage, there may be the forces that it came down with. Those spans might have been contorted in such a way that if you were to cut it, there might be some force that's pent up. And I guess a good way to explain it is like a spring. If I'm going to pull a spring with tension, and it's laying there, and it looks like it's not moving, if I were to cut it, it would snap and go back. So when we're describing why our divers need to go down there and verify what we're seeing in those 3D drawings, it's because they need to verify what those connections look like so that we can understand if there are any forces on the wreckage in a certain way. So if we do cut something, God forbid, there won't be an additional risk or that we wouldn't have additional casualties. So we might be describing how things are laying, but it's really about how we're going to take it apart.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, quick question. We talked the last couple of days, you had kind of miserable weather up on the surface. We at least got a break from the rain for a bit today. Have you been able to resume some of the work at the surface that you've not been able to do? Were you able to move the ball forward today, so to speak?
So yesterday, during the weather, crane operations did cease, but we were continuing to dive and survey. We have one pick that we're working on over on the north side of the wreckage, and that I was out there this afternoon and I saw them. They were already cutting. When I left, it was still not removed yet, but they're working on about a 350-ton lift out of that span.
Does that happen today?
That's supposed to happen today.
NBC?
Hi, thank you. Whoever is best equipped to answer this question, I wanted to ask about you talked a lot about the ships that need to come in. The ships that are trapped in the port right now, there's almost a dozen, including military vessels that are supposed to be able to move at a moment's notice. What is the status of the ships and the commercial and military implications for the ones that are stuck right now?
So there are 7 commercial vessels that are stuck within the port. They still have all their crews upon them, and they are at their docks, and we are checking regularly on those crews that are on board those ships. And they will not be able to leave until we're able to open a channel deep enough for them to be able to get out. The same is true with the military sea lift ships that are in port here. That's the status of those. And then there are some other tugs and barges that need a deeper draft than the 2 alternate channels that we have currently to get out. And so once we're able to open up another alternate channel that's at that draft, then they'll be able to get out as well.
How concerned are you about that timeline, especially with the military vessels?
Well, we are working as fast as humanly possible, as the President has directed us, to reopen that channel. And we are going to do that as fast as humanly possible, but we're also going to do it in a very safe manner so that we don't have more casualties or injuries to the workers who are doing that now.
Any more questions? All right.
Can we just get some clarification? The work that's happening on the water, are the efforts to search for the bodies of the victims and the efforts to survey, ultimately remove the debris, is that happening like different teams? Is it happening simultaneously?
So to refresh, on the first day we had search and rescue, we shifted into recovery, and then when the wreckage was deemed to be too dangerous for divers to go in, we moved to salvage. But the salvage operation doesn't mean that we stop. And salvage operation is a very disciplined, methodical, and iterative approach. So with every layer of wreckage that we take out of the water, we have to go back in and survey and assess and determine how the wreckage reacted in order to make sure that the next lift will be just as safe. But in that process, if we detect any sign or even the slightest chance that there's something we need to continue to investigate that might be a missing person or a piece of equipment that could possibly have a sign for more recovery efforts, we've got the Maryland State Divers and Maryland State Police to come in and be ready to go right there. So it is an integrated part of the salvage operation. The recovery it's not an afterthought. It's integrated in that plan.
Thank you. Going to take one more question if anyone has it. Any more questions? Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Really appreciate your service. Thank you. I know it's tough.
Hey guys, we have to do something with the governor real quick. If we can get the cameras off and out, I would appreciate it. At least off the tripods, off the sticks. And turn it around.